What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Black Professionals Project. My name is Kenton Hipsher. I am the CEO and founder of the project, and our mission is to educate and inspire Black and Brown youth through the stories of Black and Brown professionals and really try to motivate them and show them what careers are available to them and what's out there. So today we have another excellent young Black professional with us, and that is Mr. Dom, as I call him, but you can call him Dominic. Please introduce yourself, sir.
Hi, my name is Dominic Gray. I work as a data scientist for Caterpillar in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and I've been with Cat for a couple of years.
Okay, gotcha. So if you don't mind sharing, what is your age or age group, if you prefer, and what's your ethnicity? How do you describe it? And then where are you originally from?
Okay. I'm 25 years old, originally from Norfolk, Virginia. Currently live in Virginia Beach, Virginia. It's part of the Tidewater Hampton Roads region. So it's basically like a really big city, even though it's a conglomerate of 7 different cities, Norfolk, Virginia Beach. So I live in that area, and I'm from that area as well. And the other thing was, you said 8. Oh, and I'm African American.
Okay, great. So growing up in Virginia, I'm sure you had a very diverse experience being on the East Coast, if any. What would you like to share a little bit about, what it was like being a young Black man growing up where you were, and how that affected your career today?
Okay. So I know for where I'm from, we're actually, Norfolk's a huge Navy town. So it has the largest base in the world. So growing up, I saw a lot of diversity because people coming in and out of Norfolk based on deployments. And I actually work in the marine sector within Caterpillar. The company or the group I work in is a former Cat acquisition. And in the past, they actually monitored naval ships, which is a lot of people in this area that I'm from work for the Navy, or they're in the Navy, or do something related to the Navy. So the group I actually work in now, previously, I used to monitor ships in the Navy. So there's kind of that connection there with where I'm from. And I believe from the diversity aspect, growing up, this area is pretty diverse, simply because of the Navy being here and a large military presence, people coming and going.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know for me, growing up in Indiana, it was kind of like, or I should say more specifically in Indianapolis, because Indiana is much different than Indianapolis, but in the metropolitan area, it was also very diverse, and a lot of Black and brown people intermingle with a lot of white people, and some Asian population sprinkled in every now and again, but not as popular as here on the West Coast. But also had a larger military presence, and that probably contributes to that at some point. But let's talk about your education and what got you to where you are today. As far as becoming a data scientist, what was your track to get to that point?
Okay. So for me, growing up, I was always a big fan of math. I remember back being a kid, and math was always my favorite subject growing up. And when I was going into college, I was actually thinking about going into an engineering field. I was more so interested in mechanical or electrical engineering. I was actually always interested in math and how things work, and I was a big numbers guy. So I ended up going to Norfolk State University as part of the Dozeret's National Institute of Mathematics and Applied Sciences. And I actually switched my major multiple times. I started off a computer science major and then I switched to physics, and then I settled on math. So I had multiple majors. So for my program, you had to be in a STEM major, and I tried at least half of them for like a very brief period. But I ended up settling on math, and throughout undergrad, I did multiple summer research programs where I was using data to better understand either infectious diseases or essentially just being able to monitor diseases in populations or in the body. And I was using it was a very data-driven approach and using a lot of math. So I definitely sparked interest in that. And going into my senior year of undergrad, I had an opportunity to participate in the Thurgood Marshall College Fund Leadership Institute, which is a conference for students at historically Black colleges and universities to go and interact with different companies and learn about opportunities at different companies. And one of the companies that I connected with was John Deere, and I actually got an offer to come as an intern at John Deere and working as a data scientist in human resources. So I went there and I realized that, wow, I really love corporate America, because up until that time, I was definitely focused on going into research, being a professor and leading a lab or a research group. But once I got that, once I did that internship with John Deere, my first corporate experience, I saw like a big difference between how data projects are done in I guess academia versus in corporate America. In academia, projects are kind of stretch out, and then it's kind of, you can kind of go down wormholes easily with with your questions, with research questions, whereas when you work in corporate America, you're really focused on solving the immediate business problem. How can I solve this problem right now? And within academia, it's more so I want to solve this question, but this question leads to another question that sometimes you can get side railed and just go off and work on that project forever. So I definitely saw like a huge contrast between academia and corporate America. And I did give academia a chance briefly. I actually went to the University of Georgia, where I'm at Kenton. And I realized in my first semester, I do not like this. So I ended up looking for job opportunities, and Caterpillar had a data science or an analytics rotational program. So I joined that, moved out to Peoria, Illinois. And then I realized that Caterpillar has an office in Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is basically where I'm from. And I ended up applying to a role in that office, and that's where I am now. And pretty much what I do now is we monitor engines on ships to determine ways in which customers can save fuel and operate more efficiently, and also working to understand ways in which their equipment can fail and being able to predict those failures.
Gotcha. So you're doing a lot of predictive analytics, and then also trying to use the data from, I'm assuming, past runs to try to optimize the ships and their usage on a day-to-day basis, yes. Right?
Yes. So for a lot of customers in the marine industry, their big focus is how can I save fuel? Or sometimes how can I, like for ferry companies or companies that have to transport either people or goods, they're focused on how can I get from point A to point B the quickest. So figuring out maybe what speed they should run the vessel, how often they should run the vessel, things like that. We work to figure out being able to provide those insights to the customer.
I see. So you mean like a car, they don't have the little green leaf in there that's like you're running at an optimal speed right now?
So what we're trying to do is figure out what those optimal speeds are.
Okay.
Or in some cases, ships actually have multiple engines. So on very large ships, they may have 4 really large engines. And these engines are huge. I have a picture on my Instagram of me next to one of our biggest engines that we make out in Germany. And like these engines, they may have 4 different engines. So figuring out, okay, maybe I should run, maybe the best configuration is all 4 engines at half power, or maybe just 2 engines at full power, and figuring out the differences in fuel consumption if they run 2 engines at full power versus 4 engines at half power. So figure out questions like that. And then also the age of the engine can help, can skew those numbers some. Maybe some engines in that, like maybe one engine runs a lot more efficiently than the other 3 in that scenario. So figuring out, hey, maybe you should run this engine at 75% and then the other engine is slightly less.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of data coming out of those, and definitely going to have to be able to handle that. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, doing all this data analysis and trying to provide useful insight back to your clients, what are some of the things that get you excited about your job? Like, what makes you want to wake up and do that? Because to the average person, looking at a bunch of data may not sound very exciting. So what about it makes it exciting for you?
I think for me, I've really enjoyed, so I work very closely with customers. Whether it's, I've actually been down to work with a customer in Brazil or a dealer, and I've been out to Germany and Sweden to meet with customers, and just being able to have a level of engagement with customers. I think that's one of the most important things for me. For my group, I work a lot with business intelligence and reporting, and we focus on how can we measure success the way that the customer measures success. So we approach every customer slightly differently, because every customer is going to have a very different goal in mind. So we want to figure out what that goal of winning is for that customer, and we want to be able to help them win. And I think that's what's extremely exciting about the field I work in. Every customer is different, learning about what their priorities are and learning about what their goals are and figuring out how can you create the best solution for that customer. So I think that's the rewarding part. And I like travel, so. I mean, this year, not as
with the coronavirus, things have probably slowed down on the travel end, but yep. I do remember you going back and saying, you've been to Germany and, talking to you while you were in Germany and all the cool things you got to see sort of behind the scenes was really dope.
Yes. And I mean, even without the travel, still meeting with customers and figuring out, virtually, of course, but figuring out how they want to measure success on their own and how they, what their definition of winning is, basically.
That's cool, man. That's really cool. It's always great to hear, what people do from the professional themselves. So another question that I always think about is, what makes you necessarily a professional versus the average person who's looking at Excel sheets and trying to make graphs and stuff?
That's a good question. I think my ability, I would say actually my ability to learn from subject matter experts. So I come from a very mathy background, but honestly, before, I've learned so much. Right now, I work specifically in the marine industry, and I've learned so much about ships from people on my team and also customers. Just learning what, how ships operate. Some things are very similar to a car, and I mean, of course, I'm not an expert in cars, but some things are. You're kind of oh, this is kind of in a car. This happens. Mm-hmm. I mean, technically all engines are the same, but just being able to learn from subject matter experts and taking that very mathy background, and I do some programming, being able to take those skills, those technical skills, and apply them to the business problems. And I think I would say, because correct me if I'm wrong, I think the question you're asking is what makes me a professional data scientist? Yeah. And I meet a lot of people throughout Caterpillar or through that are our customers, or that have some proudness with data, and they know what they want to do, and they have a lot of background on that field. And I appreciate the opportunities to be able to help out on some of those projects and be able to lend a little bit more data prowess to those problems. So I think that's what makes a quote unquote professional data scientist. But in all honesty, data science is very open. There's a lot of it's still kind of defining itself, essentially. It's not like a mechanical engineer has, in theory, done the same types of things for the last 20 years. Of course, technology changes, but for a data scientist, it's actually a new term. Didn't exist 20 years ago, but there were data science type related tasks 20 years ago, and now it's even breaking up into more subfields.
Great. That's really cool thinking about the evolution of this field over time, because like you said, it's always been happening, but now it's really been carved out as sort of its own entity. So there are people out there who are data scientists. That's what they do, and not just mechanical engineers who have to wear multiple hats, or software engineers or computer scientists who have to wear multiple hats. They do data science, and that's their role. So that's good to have that delineation now. So with that, what would be one misconception that people have about a data scientist?
I would say the biggest misconception, like for me, and that I see, like I've worked with a couple interns and people that are newer to the field. I guess I'm kind of a little bit more mid-level now. I'm not really entry-level anymore, but I've worked with some entry-level people, and I see that like when you're in school and you have data science type projects, the projects are very often it's clean data. The problems have very limited complexity from the standpoint of there's going to be typically one right answer. Whereas once you actually get into the field, you start realizing that, okay, data is not going to be clean. And then the answer changes based on the assumptions that you make. You can interpret data a lot differently. In some cases, there's no right or wrong way to interpret the data that you have. So that's why your answer can change, and there can be multiple answers to one problem. And I think a lot of people, because I struggled with this when I first got into data science, thinking that everything was going to be like a school project and everything was going to have a right or wrong answer. Whereas I believe there is some autonomy in how you interpret the data, and I think that can definitely change results that you have. So I think, pretty much in college, they give you clean data sets. In real life, nothing's clean. You have to figure out how to best interpret that data for the business problem solving, right? But you may take another problem. Like, I'm working on a project right now where I'm using a data source that's well known within Caterpillar. And for the specific problem I'm solving, I have to interpret it slightly differently than someone else that's worked with that same data set to solve a different problem. So there's different assumptions that we have to make to solve our specific problem. But yeah, I think it's not always going to be like college. I think that's the biggest misconception.
So in addition to the dirty data that you may get, or convoluted data, what are some other obstacles that you also have to face, in your role?
I think being able to. So I mentioned this as earlier as a contrast to how academia and corporate America approach data problems. In academia, the problem just kind of keeps going, and you kind of get to determine when you want to stop working on the problem, because you can open up a wormhole. Like every project, you have a hypothesis, and then that hypothesis may open up another hypothesis. Whereas in corporate America, one of the challenges is sometimes you just have to solve that business problem. And there may be other problems that seem interesting, like, oh, well, I was focused on how we can save this X amount of dollars. And I noticed this interesting thing also while I was solving that problem, but sometimes you can't go into that interesting thing. So you can't necessarily choose all your problems. So I think that's one obstacle, whereas naturally data scientists are very curious people. So I think that's a huge obstacle that we do face. Another obstacle is being able to convince the business, or being able to convince subject matter experts that what the data is saying is true. Because sometimes I'll be in the room with people that have worked on engines, or they've done this for a lot longer than I've done it. Mm-hmm. But the data has an answer, so you have to figure out how to communicate what the data is telling you to a group of people that understand the system a lot more than you do. And sometimes being receptive to the fact that maybe there's an issue in the data, an underlying issue in the data, because maybe this just doesn't make sense what the data is saying. So I think that communication and also that understanding phase of the balance of what the data is saying and what the actual physical system has done in the past and technically will theoretically. So I think those are some challenges, and that's I think those are kind of two of the biggest challenges that data scientists face. And I would just add really quickly that I think the ability to continue learning with data science, especially artificial intelligence, machine learning, new technology comes out every single day. So there's going to be new algorithms, new methodology, new software that you can use for doing your job that comes out every day, and figuring out how to best keep up with that. And what that balance of learning the new things and realizing some things you don't necessarily need to learn, you just kind of need to understand at a high level versus learning at a deep level. I think that definitely changes because if you try and keep up with everything that comes out, you're not going to get your actual job done. So there's that balance there.
Yeah, it really is all about balance. And I think one of the things you mentioned that's really important, and I just want to echo again, is learning to provide value to a conversation of including professional experts in that field. Like, that's something that's really difficult to do, but it takes practice. And like you said, you just have to be confident enough in your skills and really try to understand everybody's perspective so that you can add the value that you have found. And like I said, it's a lot of trial and error. And I'm sure there's been times where you said something and the expert in the field was just like, this does not make sense. But you gotta be confident enough to stand by what you say. And if it's wrong, then just accept that, learn from it and progress forward. So I think that's really important that you mentioned that. But
because there are data scientists out there that think they can sit down and cure cancer. And it's like, we're not experts in that. We can definitely find some underlying genes that may be related, but we're not experts. We'll identify a gene that everyone has.
Mm-hmm.
And then the physicians will say, well, everyone has that gene. Of course, it's going to be present in people.
It takes two parties. It takes the people doing the data, and it takes the people applying the data to come together to find a real solution. And,
yes.
You can't have one without the other. You need to have the two in a nice balance to make real progress. And,
so,
like you said, you can't get too cocky. You can't go out and try to cure cancer with data science or, with medicine, on the other hand, just alone. So you got to work together.
Yeah, it's very interdisciplinary thing. So,
mm-hmm. For sure. So, including those obstacles and thinking about how you overcome those, are there any pieces of advice that you would like to offer young Black and brown youth who are trying to follow in your footsteps or pursue a career similar to the one that you have now?
Yes. I would say don't be scared to try new things. I I think that curiosity that a data scientist has, I think that can extend to working on different projects and trying to learn new skills within the field. I also think that I would definitely stress that find a mentor that's also excited about data. I think the biggest requirement for being a data scientist that they don't tell you, you see all this list of programming languages and algorithms that you should know. But I think the most fundamental thing is just being excited about data. I would say find a mentor that also shares that same excitement that you have about data. For me, I was fortunate enough through the Thurgood Marshall College Fund program to be able to find that mentor that I also that looks like me and also shares an excitement in data. And I would just recommend anyone else to be able to find that mentor. And I think lastly, I would say try and incorporate data science into your everyday life. Like I know for me, I have a record collection, and I've worked on trying to apply machine learning algorithms to better group my record collection and also figure out ways in which I can identify new records that may be interesting based off of things that I like in my collection. So I would say just incorporate it into your everyday life. If you like video games, there's a ton of artificial intelligence that you can apply to building new video games. And I think being able to incorporate that into your everyday life makes it a lot more personal. And you may work in field X, but you don't always have to do data science in field X. You can do it in almost everything. So that's one of the exciting things about data science. It definitely spans every field industry that we have, everything from Facebook to Netflix to car companies are using data science. So I definitely think it definitely spans everything. So I would just say take advantage of it and figure out how it impacts the areas that you're interested in life.
Dope, man. That's great pieces of advice. And I know somebody out there is probably listening to that thinking, I'm going to figure out how I can use data to improve my cell phone battery usage or something that really matters to them. And it's possible. It's all possible using data analysis. And, you know, if you're passionate about it, like you said, then that's one way that you'll ultimately be successful, is to have that passion. So we want to thank you, Dom, for coming on. You know, it's always great to catch up with a friend, of course, and it's even better to share your story. So thank you for sharing that on our platform. And is there any shout outs or last minute comments or things you want to say?
I think I just want to say, I think it's very important. I definitely appreciate what you're doing. And I know for me, I'm trying to get involved in more things of how can I pay it forward. I've had a lot of people pour into me that have basically molded me into who I am right now. So I definitely think this is a great opportunity to pay it forward. And I would just recommend anyone out there to think about ways in which you can pay it forward and definitely appreciate. I think that's the best way to appreciate the people that have helped you in the past.
Great. Well, on that, we will end it here, man. Thank you for joining us on the #Black Professionals Project. You can make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our channel so you can get all the latest updates on the newest professionals that are on here and their career paths. And if you have any suggestions as far as who you want me to talk to, what careers you're interested in, or even just comments about this video, then let us know. Drop the comments down below, and just join the community. Join us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on Instagram at the Black Professionals Project. And from there, we hope to see you, and we hope to see you grow and potentially be the next member on the #Black Professionals Project. So with that, we are out.